BRB UK. Worse teeth, better accents.
Hello and welcome to episode 556 of BRB UK. I am Coleman. Hi. No Dan this week. I don't actually know what's topical in the news lately, so I can't make up a funny thing that he's off doing. Let's just say he's playing Starfield, which he's not because it's not Destiny. Not. It's close, spaceships and that. But
causing hurricanes in Florida.
It's a bit morbid.
Well.
It's Dr. Dan, not Dr. Doom. I'm sure he'll, yeah. Well, Dan's next week. I believe he's off doing something very important. We'll find out about that another time. But for now, well, not for now. For now and forever, we've got Timothy Hibbs.
Is that forever just because I don't miss an episode? Is that where we're going with it?
Mostly
stuck
don't.
With me forever.
I think when I started, for the longest time, for about a year and a half, I just had a straight record of no loss, like no missing shows at all. And at some point, you must have usurped me by now and taken over. So, how you doing, Tim?
Yeah, all right. It's been a funny week, and I had a weird start to my day where, I don't know if this is too much behind the scenes, but I've got like slime-filled tires in my bike because I got too many punches, and that's been a good move. I recommend those things. They are good. I don't know why the road to my work's always got like debris in it, so like I just always end up getting punches. That's probably it.
Because you live in London. London roads are horrible.
That doesn't help. Also, cycle lanes, people just leave stuff in there. They never get cleaned up by the looks of things as well. But anyway, But yeah, so I've had slime tires for a while, and this morning, for reasons unbeknownst to me, maybe related to the fact that I put possibly too much air pressure in my tires yesterday, I was just streaming slime out of my back wheel this morning, which was just odd. It kind of went everywhere, over the road,
nothing
on
personal.
my bike. Yeah, as far as I were, slime was not coming out of my person.
Okay.
But that was an odd start to the day. But fortunately, it generally went up from there. So that was good.
I remember the slime inner tube being a new thing. And one day in the early days of that, I remember one of them exploding and just green slime being all over the spokes of my wheel. So, yeah.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah. I mean,
it's
been
the trials
good
and
for
tribulations of the cyclist.
Yeah. There you go. So hey, but it managed to get me home still. So I don't know if it's going to be a problem or not. I don't know. I don't know.
Who the flip knows? Well, Tim, me and you, we've got some stuff to talk about. We've got
a lot of
like
games
20 billion games once again, because you don't seem to understand when you've got a compilation of games, you can sort of summarize on it, rather than explain every single game in detail. But I'm not going to let you right now, because I need to talk about something I've been looking forward to, and I believe this was one of my picks of ones to watch for 2023, and that is WrestleQuest. It's finally available. It's out for all. You can get it on console. You can get it on PC. I am playing it, of course, on my Steam Deck, and it is a pretty cool little game. If you're not aware, this is a modern RPG done in a pixel art style and features turn-based battle systems, and of course is about wrestling. However, not fully about wrestling. It's kind of set in a world where, because I haven't, apart from the early trailers we saw, I didn't want to go too much into this. I want a lot of this to be a surprise for me.
Yeah.
Especially like who's in there and all the wrestlers that are featured. So I knew a handful of them. I knew Andre the Giant's there. Macho Man's featured very heavily. Jacob the Snake-Up, Double J, Jeff Jarrett, a lot of these wrestlers I knew were in there, but they had a kind of weird look to them. They're very shibby, but they've also got kind of joins on their arms, which kind of gave off the impression that they might be wrestling action figures. And that is exactly what they are, because it's actually set in a world of toys. So I'm assuming this is a child's toy box that they're playing everything together and kind of mashing things, because you could be wrestling as a wrestler, you could be wrestling against other wrestlers, and then you could be wrestling against like teddy bears and stuff as well. So there's a big variety of opponents available for you. In terms of gameplay, this is very much it's your old school Final Fantasy. It's your, but kind of toned down, more like your kind of Pokemon style of gameplay, the old Game Boy Pokemon, where pixel art, kind of top-down view, well, not top-down fully, but
Isometric now.
and then isometric. Always forget. And then you're walking along, you're finding new recruits, you're building up your team, and then you're fighting bad guys along the way, and it is pretty cool. You play a couple of different guys. The main guy being, if I get this right, I think it's the Machismo Man, which Muchacho Man. Sorry,
Muchacho Man.
And he, exactly as the name sounds, he is a Hispanic version of the Macho Man who looks up to Macho Man and wants to be just like him, and has his famous catchphrase, "Ooh, see," which is like, "Oh yeah," and which is hilarious to me because there was a one-off character they made in the reboot of ECW, the sci-fi WWE ECW, where they would bring out different gimmick characters for the Sandman to then come out and beat up and hit with his Singapore canes. And one of them was a character called the Nacho Man, who was a Spanish, Hispanic Mexican macho man who would do all his catchphrases and stuff, but he would say everything in Spanish. And like he would say something, but then one of the lines that absolutely creased me up, he would say something and then he goes, "Say everything twice, say everything twice. Ooh, yeah." And yeah, so anyway, associating this with that, I've found that very funny, and I've not seen anyone make the comparison just yet.
Okay.
Very good game, very cute style, lots of wrestlers for you to be fighting and playing with and stuff, and lots of teams. Your kind of thing is to go around, build up teams, find managers, rise through the ranks and try to get your way up where you're actually going to be a major wrestling star in the world in the footsteps of the Macho Man Randy Savage. And it's very interesting. It's kind of got that Final Fantasy, it's got that Pokemon element where you're building your team and you're swapping around different characters and talents and things. There is more than one main character, so you're swapping stories around a bit as well.
Okay.
I don't want to give too much away in case you want to get into this and want as little to know as me. But yeah, I am really, really enjoying this at the moment. And now I've moved. I have a much bigger commute to work, so this is now my commute game.
Cool.
And the Steam Deck finally has a proper use for me again because yeah, lots of travel on the tube. But it's very good. It is oozing with style. It has excellent sound design, excellent gameplay. It just flows so well. It's pretty cheap as well. I think it's under £20 for an introductory. Not sure if it's like $19.99 or something along those levels, but it's a pretty cheap game to pick up, and hours of enjoyment out of it. The only downside I found with it is, I'm assuming it's just there for easy publicity online, but there are a lot of like YouTuber cameos in the game, which some I'm okay with, some I really don't, which I didn't know anything about until walking along and then just bumping into Angry Joe. I'm like, why is Angry Joe in my game? I don't want to see Angry Joe in my game. But
Angry Joe's okay.
At least it's not my cup of tea. But to me, that makes no sense. But then there's like Wrestling with Regret. I always forget that guy's name, but he's in there. He's one of the bigger wrestling channels on YouTube.
Right.
When you're in a fight, it kind of warps you into a wrestling ring every time you have a fight, and in the crowd you can see like the caricature of Mac McMuscles is in there. So yeah, a bunch of different YouTubers will appear in different places in that game, and that's pretty cool. I have yet to see, they kind of, to carry the story along, they keep going away into this fictional wrestling podcast where a lot of the co-hosts are wrestlers. So other than that, I've not actually bumped into any proper wrestlers yet, but I've seen Jeff Jarrett. And when you start playing, you get to see Andre the Giant. So Andre the Giant, Macho Man Randy Savage. So I've seen a couple of them that way. There's statues, tributes to the different wrestlers in the world. So you see a lot of that stuff around, but I've not got to the main getting to fight any actual legendary wrestlers yet. But still enjoying it. Very cool. It's the way the game developers have aimed to make this game is it's a wrestling game for RPG fans that know nothing about wrestling, and it's an RPG game for wrestling fans that know nothing about RPGs, in a kind of way to bond those two fanships together and to get people into different things. And I like that. It's a very enjoyable game. I'm pretty much enjoying it.
So you would say it's quite accessible then? I should have prefaced that with I have a question, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. I just realized I forgot to play the footage while we were doing this as well. You have to keep it in your mind. I'll probably talk about this going forward. But it's interesting. You have your main character, you're going through your story. It will send you off into different quests, different side quests. Most of it story based, some of it like fun little things to do. Every now and then you bump into enemy characters, and then when you are facing them, it will warp you inside a ring, and that's where your turn-based tactics come into play. If you take down certain characters, because there'll be like animals, robots, that kind of thing, but then there'll be the more actual wrestler type characters, a wrestling figurine. If you can knock one of those guys down, they can get back up again. But if you can pin them, then they stay down and they're out of the game. They're out of the match, and then you carry on going that way. There's boss fights as well. I was in running around a junkyard and saw a gigantic rat that I had to fight. That was pretty fun. But yeah, it's really cool. I'm looking forward to playing more of this. I'm going to keep playing more of this. I have really enjoyed it thus far. But yeah, it's definitely one to look out for.
I'm going to do it properly this time. So I have a question, Mr. Coleman. Yeah, when you said it's Macho Man, is it actually Macho Man? Is it named as Macho Man, or is it a legally distinctive Macho Man?
No, they are all the wrestlers. They have they have the licenses to use those wrestlers. These guys aren't part of the, because WWE guys, if you're in the WWE, they usually won't let you do anything unless it's a WWE product. Some of these wrestlers have passed on. Some of these are independent or in other companies. So they have been, they can just do what they want. They run their own brand. So a lot of them are former WWE guys. You've got Legion of Doom, Macho Man, Andre the Giant, Jacob the Snake, Jeff Jarrett, to name a few. I'm trying to remember if there was any others that I spotted on the way in, but yeah.
I have a follow-up question, Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Are they all they all sound like they're from the classic era then? As far as you've seen, are they all from the same sort of era, that kind of 90s era?
Yeah, thus far. I mean, even because Jeff Jarrett's going, I went to see AEW on Sunday in Wembley, by the way, and Jeff Jarrett kind of started off that whole thing by coming out and insulting the crowd and saying, none of this business would exist if it wasn't for America. America is best. Screw you, England. And then Grado, the Scottish wrestler, and Paul Wright, formerly the Big Show, came out and beat him up. But Jeff Jarrett, even though he's still going today, he's been going strong for a long time. It's still Jeff Jarrett in his 90s gimmick where he's got the weird clothes and the big hat with JJ and the big glasses and stuff. Okay. So, yeah, it's very much the wrestlers are very 80s and 90s focused.
No giant haystacks then?
Not that I've seen. I don't think Giant Haystacks gets much of a look in these days for people looking to put him in stuff.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, actually, that kind of era of wrestlers appeals to me more as well, and I do think I will pick this game up at a quieter point in the year. Because I do like the sound of it from what you've said there and from what I've seen in general. So yeah, I can see me picking this up in the future as well. Just one final question to probably tag us out of this, hopefully. But is there any multiplayer at all? Is it all single player? I'm guessing it's all single player. No?
All single player content, as far as I can see. But it's still enjoyable, and I think this would be a good one for you to pick up, Tim, because I know you like a sort of more simple game to put on your Switch while you're watching football or whatever. This would be one for that, because it is available on Nintendo Switch.
Oh, yeah, good fit for that.
Yeah, really good game. I recommend it. Definitely get one of those.
Okay.
The other one I played, and I'll only touch on this quickly because it arrived a little bit late for me, so I only just started playing this yesterday. I'll go into this more next week, I believe. But I'm playing Immortals of Aveum, which
Aveum,
I think I pronounced that. I'm going to say Avum. Do you know what? I'm going to say Avon because I believe that toiletries. Yes, which should be included in this game. No, this one's cool. So this only came, although they announced this a few years ago, this only came on my radar recently because there was some, what was it? I think it was Summer Games Fest. They were showing a bit of this off, and I was like, oh, it's a first-person shooter, but it's a magic game. It's a Magic 'em up, something like that.
Yeah.
And that's something that appealed to me with Ghostwire Tokyo. I really like that idea of running around and doing the cool things with the hands, but And though I really enjoy that game, I love the look of that game. It plays really well. It is quite a slow one, a bit of a slog to get into. It's a very long game if you want to go 100% it. This one looked more fast-paced action, kind of more of like a Call of Duty style of shoot 'em up than whatever Ghostwire was meant to be more like. And it just appealed to me because it's something different. It's something I've not really seen done a huge amount. So I really wanted to get into this. Gameplay works really well. You're a magic wielder, which looks a little bit funny sometimes because you just have your hand out in front of you, much like you would like in the old Doom and Duke Nukem days, just running around with a gun, which would basically be in front of their face. It's kind of that, but just one arm sticking out a lot of the time,
just
and then the other
yelling
one used for other
abracadabra
things.
at dudes, yeah?
Exactly. Expelliarmus and all those kind of things. You have 3 different modes of fire. You basically have like a short-range shotgun type effect, which is like a red. That's the other thing as well. They explain what the different types of magic are called, but then they just refer to them by colors. So the red one is your shotgun type fire blast thing.
Right.
You've got a green one, which is a short wave, like a machine gun type thing that's used for crowd control. And then you have a blue one, which is used more for long range and standard kind of attacks. Then, yeah, you can do it for sniping as well. But then you have things like a magic shield and a lasso that you can pull enemies towards you. And all that stuff.
Does it make them tell
cool.
the truth?
Not that kind of lasso, Tim.
Right.
Just more like a hook shot.
Right,
and I've seen some negativity around the game, not because of the gameplay, although I've seen like a lot of positivity as well. I saw one outlet refer to this as like the first big AAA game, not the exclusive for this generation.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't go that far. I think there's a lot of games that are multi-platform, multi-generation that have performed a lot better than this.
Right.
However, this is a game that will be locked at 60 frames a second, performs very well, looks very pretty, and is fun. A lot of the negativity I see, it's the same thing as Forspoken had, where a lot of people are complaining about the writing, the way the characters talk, that sort of thing. And it's something I've complained about in the past. It's what I like to call like the Marvel effect when it comes to writing. Everyone has to have quips. Everyone's got to be telling jokes. And I think that's weird in a lot of scenarios, like when the later Star Wars films came out, especially the last film, and everyone's got quips, everyone's got silly jokes. They Fly Now being the big one that everyone was pointing out. And this doesn't feel like that because I feel it's made to be like that. It's not just something that they've just inserted humor because it has to be done.
I watched a couple of reviews on it, and the way Skill Up, I think it was, expressed it was basically that it kind of knows what it is a little bit better than Forsaken did. Like it's kind of almost
Forspoken.
Forspoken. It kind of takes itself reasonably seriously, but it has fun while doing it, type of idea. And I think that's probably a better approach, because then you're not sort of, the self-deprecating humor doesn't quite work as well when you're asking gamers to enthuse themselves in a new universe and kind of get used to that and take that world seriously, basically. And I like the look of it. Early reports are that and I think it's mainly based on concurrent Steam players, so it's not always kind of wholly accurate, but the amount of current Steam players playing it was very low, basically.
Yeah. I mean, that happens a lot, and Steam is not the metric for every game being played, as we know. Like a lot of games, like this is perfectly suited to PlayStation 5. Again, locked at 60, it's a well-performing game. However, I think the problem is there's a lot of big heavy hitters around the corner. I mean, for instance, this podcast comes out, we've got Mortal Kombat, which I'll have. So I'll stop playing this probably to play Mortal Kombat. We've just had Armored Core come out as well, from what the man Rick, he was telling me that it's an incredibly good game and he was really enjoying that. So there's a lot of competition at the moment. I think this will fall by the wayside.
And we've got Starfield just around the corner as well. So
Starfield is just, as we're recording, the reviews are coming out, as you pointed out to me. Yeah. So I think it's going to have a lot of competition. This is likely to be one that's either going to get more play in a Game Pass or in a PlayStation Plus or something like that. or even so much on the sales, which is a shame because it is an enjoyable. And I will preface again, this is not a game that I've put into this is not a game I got sent for review. This is a game I bought myself, and it arrived late for me, so I've only had a couple of hours playing. I'm still the game hasn't opened up for me at this point, but I'm enjoying it so far, and I'm looking forward to playing more of it. However, I love this game. I love Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat was here first. So I'm going to be playing a lot of that.
When you're not already invested in a universe, it's a more hard sell. And I think it's a very difficult time to bring this game out. And I'm not sure it wouldn't have been better to hurry it up and had it out a month or so ago, or delay it till November time when things are a little quieter, sort of idea. But I'm not sure. I don't know. There's a good time to bring this game out at the moment. It's a bit of a shame. I think from technical standpoint, though, isn't it one of the first AAA games in Unreal Engine 5? I think that's one of the selling points for it, and that's why
that is one of the selling points.
Look quite nice for it. But yeah.
The other kind of thing that this is getting championed for, and I'd be remiss to not mention it, is that this is a game from EA that doesn't have day one DLC or season passes or microtransactions or anything like. And I don't really want to champion it for that, because they should be games should be like that. Let's stop turning our 70 quid games into mobile games.
To be fair, EA is on a really good run for that. So it's another tick in the box of them keeping their run going in that regard. But at the moment, with a very crowded market, this is one I was like half interested in, but with my finances being slightly limited at the moment, and we'll come on to that a bit later. But yeah, Immortals of Aveum is one that I'm just going to wait and see for it to turn up.
I'll bring it when I'm done. We live down the road from each other now.
That helps as well. Yeah, if you've got it on disc, I can borrow it from you at some stage. They may help. But yeah, it's not one I'll be investing in anytime soon, put it that way. But I like the look of it. So yeah, I wish it well.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm really enjoying. I think you can. I think you're in for a fun time if you end up picking this one up. However, there are many big games, and it is good to see a game after the disappointment. Though, and again, I like the story, I like the gameplay, all that kind of stuff. After the Star Wars Jedi came out, and I was incredibly hyped for that game, and it did not perform well, performance-wise on PlayStation 5, and from the last time I checked, after the last big update, still doesn't perform that well on the PlayStation 5. It's good to see a game just work out the box,
well, that helps.
Just perform well. So that's really good. No stuttering or slowdown or anything like that. All right, Tim, you got a big one, and we're going to try get through this.
Yes.
You've got, and mainly because this is part of our childhood, you've got Taito Milestones 2. Which is a collection of different games from the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah.
From the game publisher Taito. So you're gonna. I'll have some input because a lot of these we would have both played as kids. So let's get on this.
These are all arcade games. Also, before we get too deep in the weeds here as well, would you say Taito or Taito? I'm not sure of the pronunciation. I don't know. I've always said Taito.
I've always said Taito. I don't know if that's right. Taito to me wrong. Says to any Irish lists, there is a brand of crisps called Mr. Tato.
Right, and yes, and that's
make
got
me
a
think
Y
of
in
that.
It. That's probably right. You're probably correct. You might have to correct me more than once and go again on this. But yeah, these are a collection of 10 arcade games. This is as the kind of the name kind of hints at, this is the second collection in the Milestones collection, basically.
Yes.
And they're trying to sort of highlight, and they talk about like 10 games being like pivotal moments in gaming history and that type of thing. There seems a slightly odd claim to make, because there's not like, there's like two or three of like, there's often like two of a similar genre on this sort of collection, basically. So it's a bit weird claim. But the headline thing and the thing that really attracted me to the collection was a game I actually spoke about a couple of weeks ago and didn't know was coming to this collection. I think we were talking about the Evercade, and I can't remember what they're called, but the smaller handheld pocket versions. And there's a Taito or Taito and a Capcom one of those coming up. And I was looking at that and I was like, oh, it's got New Zealand Story and Puzzle Bobble and all these other things. And New Zealand Story is the real kind of headline one for me, because I haven't seen this come out on another collection or, a backwards or, a recent re-release of this game. And it's a game I absolutely loved as a kid. Now, this is the arcade version, but I actually played the Amiga version back in the day. And if anyone doesn't know, it's a cutesy platformer. You are a little kiwi, I believe.
Yes, it's a kiwi.
That with a bow and arrow. And you're going around kind of platforming. There's little kind of crafts and little hot air balloon type things and little kind of floaty platform things that you can fly around on. Usually you have to capture them off other enemies and stuff like that. There's also, and the thing that I really remembered about the game, and this is, the thing I really remember about the game is there being shortcuts, and it's one of the first games I ever saw that had like shortcut warps to different levels ahead of where you were, and you can jump massively forward in the game just by finding them. And it's one of those weird things where, like, how much of my brain capacity and my general memory has been taken up with video game like shortcuts and knowledge and like level design and level layout. And it's like I knew exactly where the first shortcut was in this game like before I started playing it. Like I went to and the shortcuts are kind of weird because they're kind of invisible, so you kind of have to shoot them with arrows a couple of times to open them up. And the first one's like you have to like face backwards from the top of a platform and shoot backwards to kind of open it up. And it was just weird that I kind of remembered all that stuff basically. But yeah, it's a really cutesy platformer. It's quite rock hard. I do actually think because all of the games in this collection, you can save the game, which kind of helps progress in some ways. But you can also just add credits at any time. So if you die, you can continue. So it's quite difficult to get on the leaderboards, and there are online leaderboards for the game, which is another addition they've made. And it's hard to get like a high score and get on the leaderboards and stuff, or get highly placed on the leaderboards. But it's not very difficult to make progress in the game. It's actually easier to make progress in the game than it used to be back in the days where you'd only get 3 lives, or you might have to use a cheat to get more lives so that you can make more progress in the game. So I actually made a reasonable amount of progress in this game, but some of it is really rock hard. There's like things where you have to be like pixel perfect in your platforming kind of thing, like where the actual platform is literally a pixel or so wide, and you're jumping up on a variety of different things to get like higher and higher up and battling enemies on the way. And there's some like proper rock hard platforming going on in this game basically. But I have absolutely loved going back to it. Like it's really kind of sparked like joyful childhood memories. It was one of those things where I was just like, I'm just going to have a quick look at this before I cook dinner. And before I knew it, it was like 9 o'clock. I was like, oh, okay, I'm quite late for dinner this evening. Oh, whoops.
I remember always finding New Zealand Story quite a bit hard when I was a kid. Like that was one of the platformers I'd struggle with.
Yeah. It's a slightly unforgiving game. I'd say more unforgiving than Mario and of games of that sort of ilk. Certainly more unforgiving than Sonic. But as much as I don't like platform games, I really have some love for this game. I don't know, it's just because I played it a lot as a child, but
it's nostalgia.
It was the headline kind of act for me on the whole collection, and it's the one I've probably I put more time into it at first, and I've probably gone away and kind of explored more of the other games and put more time into those. Just to round out my review impressions and kind of get a better idea. But overall, I think it's the one that I'll play the most going back to in the future, basically.
I see.
And love the experience. It was really good to go back to, and I was really glad I did. Sometimes that doesn't always work. Going back to a game that you loved as a kid can ruin those memories. This has not done so. I still really like this game and really enjoyed my experience of playing through it again. So let me run through the other ones a bit quicker than I have there. I've spent a bit more time than I will.
You can't go to everyone in that level of detail.
Exactly. So there's a game called, and a lot of these are games that I hadn't heard of before, and I think some of them probably because the little splash screen that it gives you on the opening screen of all of them Like some of them are just in Japanese, and that usually with these types of collections, and I haven't gone and double checked this, but that usually hints at the fact that they were not available outside of Japan. Often the case with these arcade machines that they didn't come to. They might not come to America, but they certainly are even less likely to have come to the UK, basically. So some of these games I don't think I've played before. That is not the case with Darius. I think that's one of the ones I had played before, but I'm not sure I've played this version. This was noted as the 3-screen arcade version. So it's a very kind of long and thin kind of screen and kind of a bit pulled back. On the Switch screen when you're in handheld mode, it's a little on the small side, but not too bad. But this is a scrolling shoot 'em up. Was really good fun. Enjoyable. Kind of reminded me of R-Type and graphically similar in terms of kind of fidelity and kind of enemy types and stuff like that. A little bit simplistic in some of it, and some of the kind of graphics of the stuff that you're shooting and stuff like that, as in the bullets or lasers or whatever you want to call them coming out of your thing. But generally, like graphically impressive for the time, and was a fun scrolling shoot 'em up that I enjoyed. There was the first one that I hadn't heard of before was a game called Kiki Kai Kai from 1986, and this was a like bottom to top scrolling what's the right word, slash 'em up type thing. Like you've got a sword attack, but then you're mainly throwing shurikens out to kind of attack things ahead of you. Your swords you like kind of a backup if things get closer to you, or that's how I found when playing through it. It was quite enjoyable for an old school game. It did very much feel like old school vibe, and also quite tricky and quite difficult. So I didn't get that far into the game, but it was like, okay, I hadn't heard of this game before. It was an interesting kind of trip to the past and kind of have a look at it. But I don't think it's got mass appeal outside that. And I don't know how many people other than myself may have heard of it. If you're a bigger kind of retro gamer, you may have come across it before, but it's not one that I was familiar with. There was a game called Gun Frontier, which is I think this was this was a upward scrolling shoot 'em up, and that was one I'd not heard of before, but was unforgivingly rock hard, but really good when you got into it. Basically, when you got like on a roll, and it seemed to be that if you unlocked a particular like super version of your thing that really upgraded you really quickly, it was much easier to get through. And once you got that, like it's one of those games, once you get in a roll and you're picking up all the bonuses and everything, the spread of your fire gets better, the amount that you're attacking gets, and the whole game gets a little bit easier. So you really like, it's one of those, but it's also on the reverse of that side. Once you get into it, if you start doing badly, it soon snowballs and you kind of get overrun really quickly and killed really quickly. So yeah, a bit unforgiving, but enjoyable. Another one I hadn't heard of was a game called Ben Biro Bay, which I believe I'm pronouncing correctly. I'd never seen this before. A game from 1984, so obviously on the earlier side of things. It was really impressive.
Old as me.
Yeah, it was really. I didn't realize that. It makes me feel really old, Coleman. But anyway, but yeah, this was a game I'd never heard of. I don't know if it ever came out in this country, but it was really impressive for graphically for the time, and even gameplay wise, it was quite interesting as well. It was a firefighting game, and the thing that impressed me about the game was actually it kind of changed every time you did a level. It changed like the fire propagation and where the fire was coming from and how far it spread, and how it spread changed almost every time, so that you couldn't necessarily predict what's going on. But it was a kind of side-scrolling platformer where you're working your way down different levels back and forth across the screen, fighting the fires, jumping over holes, ducking to avoid like lights that were swinging above you, and making sure that you put out the fire to get to the end of the level. I really enjoyed that one, actually. I thought that was really good. Not a game I've come across before, but I was actually like impressed with it for its age. I think it kind of showed it pretty good. In a similar vein, The Legend of Cage, I'd kind of heard the name before, whereas BRB I'd never heard of before at all. The Legend of Cage,
Right.
I recognize the name, but I thought I might recognize the game in going in. I did not recognize it at all and started playing it. It's a side-scrolling ninja slash 'em up, again with a bit of more of a kind of you probably want to be keeping your shurikens going. I think it was shurikens in that,
I've seen
but
this.
kind of at
Yeah,
a distance. The thing I found really odd is it scrolled right to left, which and then did other things on top of that as well. I think there was some upward scrolling at one point as well. But and it's got a bit of verticality to it, so you could actually climb trees in the level and stuff as well. Again, was quite impressive for its age. I was like, oh, this is actually quite good. I can see why this may have struggled to be ported across to, have decent ports on home consoles at that sort of time. I don't remember it ever coming across to the Atari 2600 or anything like that.
No, this was a NES game.
Right,
NES Famicom.
Okay, it may have found its home in there, but that's possibly why I didn't come across it at that stage, because I didn't play NES that much, basically. So
it's had a bunch of re-releases and a 3D remake at one point.
Okay. But that's possibly where I've come across the name before. But as I said, I was really impressed with it for its age. Pretty good. Slight backhanded compliment, but that was all right. Liquid Kids, which also had the subtitle of Mizubaku Adventure, which I'm guessing Liquid Kids, from the fact that it had a more European or American friendly name, that it probably came out in the States at least, but I don't remember ever seeing this game before. It kind of, again, it was a game that I really enjoyed much more than I was expecting and was reasonably impressed with. It did come out in 1990, so I think by that sort of age there were probably more impressive, it's a side-scrolling platform game, so I think it probably just had a lunch ate by Mario and then Sonic shortly afterwards, sort of thing. But it's kind of almost bubble like. You're kind of firing out, I think, water bubbles and kind of putting those enemies in front of you. Then you've got to jump on the enemies to kind of do stuff. But it also had a kind of flowing water effect as well. So you could have water that would then flow down into the levels below you and kind of take out enemies on different levels and stuff like that as well. Quite interesting. I quite enjoyed it.
What if Parasol Stars was a platformer?
Yes.
Side-scrolling platformer.
That type of thing as well. And this is actually one that I probably spent the most time in, other than New Zealand Story and Ben Biro Bay, possibly. Maybe the fighting games. But anyway, that was one that I spent a bit of time in and really enjoyed, quite like that. It was one that was like, okay, that adds some stuff to that. That was quite good. Right, now we come on to the two fighting games in the collection as well, and it was like, I don't know why I've never heard of either of these fighting games. Like, you and me like our fighting games, we like our retro fighting games as well. So these are two that we might have to add to the list. If I have this right,
just doing a cursory glance, I think over here it was called Violence Fight.
Okay. Still never heard of that, to be honest, either.
Don't know.
But I think the reason that it didn't gain much success is clued in by the year. It came out in 1991. And in February of 1991, Street Fighter came along and ate everyone's lunch. And this is a one-on-one fighter. So it's kind of in a similar vein. It kind of reminded me of Pit Fighter in some ways as well, but not necessarily.
I love Pit Fighter.
Yeah. I think
now.
Wasn't Fatal Fury out at 91, maybe 90 as well? So that might be maybe that was a bit late. Maybe that was 92, 93. But but I think that's the reason why we never really heard of Solitary Fire. I'm not even sure it made it to arcades over here again. But it's got some really interesting things that I've never seen done in a fighting game in general. Some language I don't understand, but it's got this knockdown system, basically. And I think when you knock down someone once, it says bagon. And when you knock down someone twice, it says bagabon. something. I'm
That
not
that'll
sure
be
of the
the
terminology.
Japanese.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the hell they were saying there, but it's a word that gets longer and extended with each hit down that you do. Basically, the thing I thought was really good was actually what it did with the health bars. What it does is, like, if you get knocked down once,
You
you
get back
can
up again.
still. No, let's not start singing. But basically,
When
you
we're
can
winning.
heal. You can heal health if you're on the attack. You'll heal a bit if you're not getting damaged, basically. But if you've been knocked down, you can't heal that top third of your health. The second time you get knocked down, you can only heal like the bottom third of your health. The third time you get knocked down, you can only heal a tiny little bit, and then after you get knocked down again, that's it. You're down, and the round's over. It was just an interesting take on health damage and that kind of system, and I kind of liked the way that worked. It made fights go back and forth a little bit more. It also had a kind of tried to do a bit of a 3D element to it as well, so there was some depth to the screen, not in the way that like Fatal Fury and other games like that did, where there's just like 3 different levels to it, but it actually had a kind of a sort of off-axis way of attacking your opponent and stepping around them and stuff. And that's not something that we really saw reintroduced until like Virtua Fighter, I think, was the first game that came along and did that again. So it was just interesting that it was doing some interesting things at a time. I just think that Street Fighter came out with, like, in comparison, massive sprites and a much more intricate control system. And so, yeah, like that's kind of took over arcades for a number of years afterwards. And I think this probably got lost in the shuffle. Likewise, Dino Rex is the other fighting game.
Yes.
This is from 1992.
Tell me about Dino Rex.
It looks like and is entirely a poor man's Primal Rage. And considering Primal Rage wasn't very good, I think I've got the title of that right, no? But it's a
Yes, Primal Rage was 2 years after.
Right, okay. And yeah, I don't know if Primal Rage copied their idea, but they did it better, and Primal Rage was never that good. And this is not great. It doesn't control very well. It's a bit clunky. It's got some nice ideas. I think the graphics were probably impressive at the time, but don't
It's
really
a Dino
necessarily
fighter.
hold up. You and me are going to have some scraps on this. We are going to get drunk and play some Dino Rex.
Yeah, I'm coming over after we finish recording.
yeah. So I think that's going to be one that we're going to have some fun with. But I would not say it was a good game necessarily. But it was.
So this
fun
one's
to see
interesting
that it
because I did some reading. I did some reading about this one. So this was meant to be a shoot 'em up, shoot dinosaurs.
Really? Okay.
Yes, and then a little game called Street Fighter 2 World Warrior came out and was storming the arcades.
Yeah.
So Taito were trying to retool a lot of their games to make more fighters because that was the big in thing at the time, and this was one of them.
Right. Yeah.
I think the difference between this one was digitized pictures of dinosaurs. Primal Rage later, that would be claymation. That was then scanned and digitized.
Right.
I really like Primal Rage, even though I don't like the game. I love the idea of Primal Rage, and I wish they finished that third game.
So someone else needs to make a dinosaur fighting game again, because that's a good idea. I don't mean like in the bloody raw sense. I mean, like.
Well, I mean, everyone go watch
proper dinosaurs.
I mentioned him earlier. I've mentioned him a few times in the show. Matt McMuscles. He has a series called What Happened, and he does one on Primal Rage 3, the Primal Rage that never came out. Go check that out. It's really good. Really good retrospective on the series as well. So yeah. All right, and the last one in the series here.
The final one in the series is Metal Black, and probably
that sounds so goth.
I don't know why. I don't know why it's called Metal Black. I was trying to think if there's a reason that makes sense, and it really doesn't. But it's got a really cool mechanic in it. It's a side-scrolling shooter. I quite liked it in general. Like it's got like 2 methods of attack, just a standard kind of firing and then a kind of laser. But you power up the laser beam, by the laser. But you power up the laser by picking up. There's 3 like primary colored like balls stuck together that look like almost like an atom type thing.
The orbs.
Yeah, and they are flying around the level generally, and you have to pick those up while also dodging the enemies and shooting, kind of thing. And it just added
Right.
another thing to, another mechanic to it. Reminded me of, is it Itsugura, the one that's got the different kind of colors that you flip between black and white, I think, basically, in that came out much more recently. But again, I never heard of. This is from 1991. It's something that I was like, I'd have loved this back in the day. Like, this is a great little game. Like, it really is a cool, fun kind of shooting game. But I don't remember it. I never heard of it. I don't know if it never came out. Maybe other people can remember this game and speak more highly of it than I did.
I mean, if you look up Metal Black, you get a lot of shades of like black carbon metal.
Yes,
so it's not the most reliable.
Yeah, this was made a long time before Google, kids, so it didn't have Google in mind when it picked a name. But yeah, it's a bit of a shame because, as I said, I would have loved to play this back in the day. It's got a really cool central mechanic to it, and yeah, just really interesting, and I enjoyed playing through it. So yeah, overall, this was a collection of games that I mostly didn't know going in, but glad that I got to kind of retrospectively go back and have a look at because it was interesting. But kind of a few of them made me sad that I didn't know them from back in the day. Like, because I think these would have been like really high quality games back in the day. And even some of the ones that weren't so fun to play, you and me are going to get drunk and play some Dino Rex. So I'm going to get some more gameplay out of that anyway. So yeah,
we're going to be playing AEW. We're going to be playing Dino Rex.
Yeah. So overall, I thought that going in, the £35 price point, which this comes out at, is a little on the high side. There is a bundle, and I'm not sure how much that costs for the collection 1, Milestones 1 and Milestones 2 put together kind of thing.
Okay. So
that might be the way to go with it, basically. And even then, possibly maybe wait for a sale. But if you're interested in retro games at all and some of the stuff I just spoke about like appeals to you, I definitely recommend it. Like I didn't think for me, I thought this was going to be a case of it's got New Zealand story and there was 9 other games kind of thing. But like there's a couple there that I think are slightly throwaway and not necessarily worth playing much of. But overall, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed some of the games I'd never heard of, and had a good time with them. So, yeah, like overall, it's a recommend. Although maybe wait for it to go on sale, possibly.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, when they do the collections of a specific type of game and all the like, they did an Aladdin Lion King thing, and it was like every version of Aladdin and Lion King that came out on every console. It's like, well, I want the Mega Drive, possibly the SNES when it comes to Aladdin, and that's it. And the rest, and same thing like Turrican, we got sent Turrican, and it was like, great, I get to play Turrican and Turrican 2, and I will try other things for a couple of minutes and go, did that, done, move on. The interesting thing with the big bundle collections is it kind of opens you up to things that you never tried, especially if and it's interesting for us especially because we grew up with a lot of these games, so it's cool to see what was available at the time that we didn't see, or was a couple of years before we started playing games, or a couple of years after, and maybe fell out of favor with the arcades and all that kind of stuff.
Midway or just disappeared in the shadow of other games as well, basically. But
like Midway Classics on PS2. I remember getting into that because I wanted to play Smash TV, and then ended up falling in love with Root Beer Tapper, or just Tapper in some places, or Budweiser Tapper if you were in America, in bars at a certain point in time. But yeah, it's always really cool to find games like that. Find games that you didn't know, like a hidden gem that you absolutely fall in love with. I think the important thing to ask with stuff like this, because it is all retro games and you can pick up, ROMs in various different ways, be that legal or not. How is the emulation on this? How, like, everything performing all well and smooth? Is there any kind of upscaling in terms of graphics and frame rate and things?
Much. I meant to just sort of dive in and have a quick look at, on the non-handheld mode, but I played almost all of it in handheld mode. The only thing I'd say is that some of the text in the like the splash screens at the start and the kind of explanation of the buttons that you had going in was a bit small in handheld mode. It was a bit hard to work out whether that was button A or button B. But considering there's only 2 buttons on most of the games anyway, it really didn't matter, basically. So, but that was the only kind of downside from a performance mode and all that type of stuff. Right, I didn't see a problem with any of the performance. The fact that they are the arcade versions and not like possibly bad ports of some of these games from back in the day, where that could have been the case with a lot of these things, arcade ports being, but the fact that they are the arcade versions, and I don't know with Darius 2 whether there was multiple other versions and people might prefer to have the non-3 screen version, but I imagine there's a reason why they put that in and why that's attractive to people. But from a performance standpoint and all that type of things, yeah, absolutely fine. And being able to save and jump back in and stuff is a nice additional feature that, you know, wasn't available when we were kids on most of these games as well. So it's put in that layer and a few other things, but yeah, generally as from a performance side of things, I didn't see a problem. Also, just because I forgot to mention it up front, and before I do forget to mention it, I did get a review copy of this game as well, so that makes my opinion invalid in any way, then you know, then do that.
Yeah, you're a shill. You've clearly been paid off for your good review of this game.
Years. I actually hate video games.
Well, I do have another question, because again, this is very important when you come to game collections, retro games that have been re-released. Any special features? Can you do save states, rewinds, anything like that?
Yeah, there's
museums and all that stuff.
Yeah, no, there wasn't too much added in the terms of, like, you know, there's no like artwork or, you know, that type of stuff added. There is the ability to save. There's no ability to rewind, which I think would have cheapened some of the kind of things here. Might have been handy in New Zealand story, to be honest, but because you can just pump another credit in and you can put as many credits in as you like at any time, it's not really a problem. I did have one thing where I meant to press the start button and I accidentally pressed exit, and I ended up quitting out of a game that I wanted to continue. But, you know, that's user error, and so we can chalk that one up to that, and that's not really a massive problem, I don't think so.
I can't remember if it's New Zealand story or if it was Rainbow Island, but like back in the day, kids.
Back in day.
Let me spin your yarn about back in the day of playing games on Amiga. These games were made for arcade machines, and they still followed the same rules. So quite often when you played a game that came out in the arcades, they still went, hey, insert credit. And the way of stopping you just constantly inserting credit is to cap you at a certain amount.
Yes.
I think Rainbow Island was like 16 or something. But the way of putting credits, it was so weird. You had to get the second joystick, hold down the fire button, and then kind of hit diagonal right down on the joystick and keep doing that to insert a coin. And you did it enough times and then went, okay, now I'll start the game. Weird times we had.
Just as another odd aside though, because there's one thing I tested the maximum amount of credits that you could put into every one of these games, and for some reason all of them maximum credits 9, apart from one of them, and I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it was Kiki Kai Kai, or it might have been The Legend of Cage, but one of them you could put 99 credits into. I think it was Kiki Kai Kai. But yeah, for some reason
you should always allow unlimited credits, because you always had, I mean, you know, it was your money, but you always had the option of just paying money until you beat a game.
Yeah.
Which I did, you know, as a younger adult, when I started working, had disposable income. There's a local arcade back in Newington, where I'm from. And there was a game that I used to be obsessed with called Gunship, I think it was. And like gigantic guns that were meant to be stuck in a helicopter. And when you fired them, they would like shake you like crazy when you played. And I used to love playing this game, and I could never beat it. So when I actually started earning a fair wage, I went out when I started earning money, I went out there, I just got all the coins I could and went, I'm not leaving till I beat this game. And I shudder to think how much I spent on that game to beat it, because I wasn't very good at it. But
that was it. Back in the day, you could literally, like, by playing an arcade, you could brute force your way in. And I have a question for you, Coleman, and I know my answer to this, so I can give my answer while you're thinking if you need to. But what was the first arcade game you clocked or finished or saw the end screen on? Do you remember? Because I know what mine was.
Do you know what? I think it was Gunblade.
Really? It was probably Gunblade. Really?
Yeah, because right. Funny story. When I was a kid, when the Simpsons arcade game came out.
Yes.
Was when I was first allowed to start spending pocket money in arcades.
Right.
And I used to play these games at home as well because my parents prefer to buy the arcade game at home because it was cheaper than spending money every week to play the game.
They bought you an arcade game at home.
No, Amiga versions of the game, which the Turtles version was not good on the Amiga.
No, it was not.
And Simpsons never had
never
an
got
Amiga
the Simpsons
as well.
I know, we never got the Simpsons on the Amiga. I was very
so
upset.
I was there, and I think I got to play with 3 other strangers, and they let me join in on their game, and I instantly died, and I was out of money, and as a very small child, threw an absolute wobbler of a tantrum. And they banned me from ever spending money in arcade again. And then when I got a job, this is true, we go on holiday to holiday campsites and all these and they'd have an arcade by, and I'd go in, and I was allowed to go in and watch people play Street Fighter 2. I wasn't allowed to play them. I'd have to play the really bad Amiga versions at home, but I'd watch them and obsessed with them. And then when I was 16 and I started earning money, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the arcade and I'm going to play Mortal Kombat 3. I'm going to play Gunship. I'm going to play Time Crisis. I'm going to play as many games as I flipping well want to. And my parents can't stop me.
See, I played, of the games you just mentioned, I clocked The Simpsons. I remember finishing that in the arcades. I played and clocked the Turtles, a 4-player arcade game with that. Street Fighter was obviously a bit easier to do, but you still had to pump a bit of money in, especially to beat Bison at the end. But the first game I ever beat and played in the arcade, Moonwalker.
Oh, the arcade version of Moonwalker is a banger compared to the Mega Drive version of it. I do love. I have a very soft spot for the Mega Drive version because of the music and the style and everything in it, but the arcade game plays so much more fun. Like that 4-player presenting robots and stuff. I don't know if it was the Japanese one or the UK one, but it was great games, great fun times. Yeah.
Right, I'm going to very, very quickly rattle through some PSVR2 Roundup because I don't know when me and Kev are going to get to it, but I am going to do this quickly, even quicker than I did the games before.
I believe Kev's finally edited VRB. Kev's taken over editing of VRB, and I think he bit off more than he could chew because he's been away from the podcast scene for a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel really bad. I've tried not to bug him about it too much. I think he's put it out and needs to speak to you about actually getting it up some
behind the scenes. Right.
So we'll keep that behind the scenes. But anyway, right. So the Room VR Dark Matter, I finished, played all the way through to conclusion. Very much mirrored my thoughts going through, so I won't go too much. But really enjoyed my time with it. Really good escape room game. A little on the high side price wide, considering that I don't think it's got a lot of replay value because I got all the achievements playing through it the first time kind of thing, and I don't think you can really play the game without that being the case. And
achievements on a PlayStation.
Achievements on a PlayStation. But yeah, you know what I mean. Trophies. So I got all the
no
trophies,
one knows what you mean.
So there's not a lot of room to go back and replay it, and I think I would have to wait a number of years to forget some of the puzzles, but that's partly because the puzzles were particularly good and memorable, so they'll probably stand out in my mind for a bit longer, which is, anyway, a rod for its own back. But yeah, generally enjoyable, really good escape room game. There's been a bit of a hubbub this week, Coleman. A bit of a hubbub.
Okay.
It's military shooter month over on PSVR2, so there are 3 games coming out in a non-calendar month. All within with 3 games that are all military shooters. Alvo's out sometime next month. That looks like it's going to be fun. So Firewall Ultra came out, and there was a lot resting on that because it's a kind of first-party game. I believe First Contact has now been bought by Sony, so I think that's a first-party title, basically. I think it's got the PlayStation logo that came up at the beginning as well. And it came out with a bit of a scandalous kind of release. A lot of people are quite upset about the state of the release. I will preface this with it. I have put a lot of hours into this game in the last week, and the hours that the play time that I've had, I've really enjoyed, and they have addressed some of the major issues. There was like a 2-minute timer between rounds that you'd had to wait for while waiting in the lobbies and stuff, and that would really annoy people. They've reduced that to 30 seconds, which was a good idea. They've also made some other minor adjustments. But there's some real odd pay to win kind of things going on with it. The economy's totally broken because they haven't released this contract mode thing, or these contracts that you can get that apparently will fix it, but they're not out yet at the moment. So they've given everyone a load of money, but that's a very short-term fix. There's also a contract that you get in the special edition, or you can pay money for separately, that allows you to see through walls and literally breaks the game, and is literally a pay to win kind of thing, because anyone with that thing on their team is going to obliterate the other team, and it's a bit frustrating. There's also some really weird bugs with people's arms going in backwards and just like odd visual bugs. There's things that don't work quite so well in terms of the stuff. It's a real shame, though, because that's overshadowing the fact that this is a really good looking game. And when it works and when it plays well and when everyone's kind of on it and like people's guns aren't not firing and all that type of stuff, when it works, it's really good fun. And I can't stop playing it, even though it's really broken. The one thing that has stopped me playing it is last couple of days, Crossfire Sierra Squad came out. It's a much more arcadey military shooter. I'm really enjoying that so far. It looks really good. It plays pretty well. It's cheaper than Firewall. It doesn't have all the microtransaction BS on top of it as well. It's got some other modes that I haven't messed around with. That's the only problem yet, is that whenever I try to find multiplayer stuff, I haven't been able to find people. And it's at a time where I'm sure there was other people playing. So I don't know if they've got like some opening day server issues and stuff like that, which is entirely possible. But generally, like, the campaign mode looks really good. I'm only about halfway through that, but apparently when you unlock that, it unlocks like progression system and weapons and all that type of stuff that looks really good. It's got a really good like gun range type thing to try everything out on, and all the weapons in that feel really good. It's definitely an arcadey thing. A lot of people are either lauding it or complaining about it because it feels like a Time Crisis style game. But I like Time Crisis, so that isn't really a problem with me. I've really enjoyed my time with that so far, and I'll report back on that more on VRB in the future. Also, just No Man's Sky had a massive update. For anyone that doesn't know, the Echoes update. As part of that update, it finally brought the visual fidelity up to scratch on No Man's Sky, and that now looks amazing. It's one of the best looking games on PSVR. It looks fantastic now. I'll urge you to come over and have a look at that at some point, Coleman. I got up to the point and deliberately got up to the point. I restarted the game and kind of got up to the point where I fixed my spacecraft just so I could take off in space and have a quick look and fly around. And oh my God, it looks so good. Like everything in that game, the opening stuff, just being on a planet, flying around, all of it looks amazing. And I hadn't really messed around. I don't know how much of it's a new update, but all the stuff where you're looking on your wrist and doing stuff and the updated menu systems and stuff that kind of fit with the VR stuff all work really well now. I am going to get lost in that game for another period in time as well. I'm really enjoying my time with that. So yeah, again, I'll report back on that in VRB, but there was a few things there I just wanted to cover because while it is timely to do so, but it has been a big week for PSVR2. Firewall Ultra was a bit of a downside, but I'm really hopeful that they can patch that and improve that and actually repair some of the damage they've done there. But other than that, yeah, I've been really enjoying my time in PSVR in the last couple of weeks. So, yeah, that is good.
Keep your ears to the ground for a new episode of what do we call it? VRB, the virtual reality podcast with Tim and Kev, our friend Kev. Yep. We're going to skip over the news because we don't have time to cover it, unfortunately.
No time for
Gamescom
news.
Highlights for you lot anyway. But it's been covered to death everywhere else, so don't worry. Yeah. There were new games announced. We won't tell you what they are. One of them's published by Quantic Dream. We won't tell you which one. You'll be funding their potentially bad behavior, allegedly.
They still have they still haven't resolved that, have they? No.
Allegedly. We don't know what's happening.
We don't know.
We don't know what's happened.
We don't know.
We are not commenting just yet. One day it'll all come out. Someone's going to do a tell-all book, and we'll cover that instead. We won't, because we don't cover books on them. What do you think? This is geek speak? No, that died a death. Anyway, we have other things. We've got merch available. Won't go into it too much. We've got merch available on tpublic.com/store/BRB. There are t-shirts, there are mugs, there are many other products with our cool designs on there. Not just Big Red Barrel related, but like video games, tabletop, all that kind of stuff. And while you're there, you might want to get the awesome Tabletop Tuesday t-shirt, which has the kaiju fight with all the little meeples and stuff. I would recommend getting that one. But that actually does draw attention to Tabletop Tuesday.
And if anyone doesn't know, each and every Tuesday we do an event called Tabletop Tuesday at the Loading Bar in Stoke, Newington. Each week, or most weeks, we have a different feature game, and if you play that feature game that evening, you have a chance of winning a copy of the game at the end of the evening. I haven't decided which game I'm doing this week. I've been a bit busy up until tomorrow, in which time I'll have some time to actually do the post. So if you want to check out which game it will be this week, you can check the top left-hand corner of bigredbarrel.com. Or you can join over the 2,000 people in our meetup group. Search for Tabletop Tuesday on meetup.com. But I can tell you that this week will be extra special prizes. Because I have some
special prizes.
Extra special prizes, you say, Com.
Whoa!
I have some extra special prizes to give away, and I'm going to share the love with our listeners as well. I'm not just going to give things out to Tabletop Tuesday people. There will be physical prizes available at Tabletop Tuesday and some digital prizes available, and I'm going to make one of those digital prizes available to one of our listeners as well. So anyone doesn't know, we have been speaking about The Room on a couple of occasions, and I believe we'll be revisiting The Room next week because it is The Room's 10th anniversary. So I've been sent some cool stuff. There's some very cool exclusive like Lego and other bits and bobs that I have been sent, and we'll be giving away some of that at the Loading Bar. So come along to Tabletop Tuesday and get that. But we also have some copies of the game, the original game, The Room, to give away on Steam. So if you would like a code, I would like you to come along to our Discord server. Comment on this very podcast. We have a thread for this podcast right here. Coleman will put a link in the show notes as per usual. And if you come along and just tell me what 3 items you would use to escape the BRB UK server.
Tim's sex dungeon.
No, the BRB UK server room or Discord room. Which 3 items would you use to escape the room? And if you give us you can just use 3 comedy items, but if you give us a description of how you would use those items to escape the room, that may win you the prize. Whoever gives the best description or the best items or the best combination thereof will win a copy of The Room on Steam. To help us celebrate the 10th anniversary of Steam. Thank you very much for the people that supplied Fireproof Games that supplied the prizes that we'll be giving away there. And congratulations on the 10th anniversary of a good escape room game or puzzle game, depending on where you look at it.
That is Tabletop Tuesday over at the Loading Bar in Stoke, Newington, and also go over to the Discord to enter Tim's fun little sex dungeon game where you could win a copy of The Room.
Don't call it my sex dungeon game. We're going to get some very odd objects of people doing that. Anyone that mentions sex dungeon is automatically disqualified.
You do not know our audience that well, do you? You've now just challenged them to do it. They don't care. They will burn the free game if they can make you feel uncomfortable, Tim. Have you not noticed this, Mr. November?
That's fine. If people want to win the game, though, they're gonna have to not do that. Okay, Mr. Coleman?
Right. I just wanted to say as well, if you could help us out and leave us a review for this here podcast, you can do so on whatever podcast platform you are listening to on us that allows reviews and the likenesses, because we've got a nice little clever algorithm that sends us all the reviews from everywhere, all over the world, which is quite hard to do when you don't have clever little algorithms to do that. And that will give us a review, and if we like it, we will read it out on the show. So entertaining as possible if you could. But oh no, Tim, I got an email this week. Stitcher is shutting down. So no reviews on Stitcher. I guess. a platform I've
Oh.
not thought about for more than 10 years. The idea of mixing internet radio and podcasts in an idea that was dated at the time they did it. But they had backing from some big podcasts at the time, Kevin Smith mostly.
Right.
Anywho,
Okay.
if you want to get in contact with the show, you can do. We've got bigredbarrel.com. It is the website where we host the show and other things, but also we have a comment section on each and every article. You can comment. We will read the comments. We will check them out on the show. We have a link to our Discord. We have a Facebook and an X and a Threads at Big Red Barrel. We also have YouTube, Big Red Barrel TV. All the links available will be in the show notes for this here episode, along with handy little chapters. But if you want to follow any of those ways of getting in contact with the show, you can ask us questions. And before we get to the questions, I will say, because you're doing your competition over on Discord, Tim, me and Kev, we're being super nice and giving our copies away of Disco Elysium, the final cut for Steam, which we got through our humble subscriptions this month, but we already own the games. So we're going to give away our codes in the PC chat room.
Well, that's
on
nice
Discord.
of you.
Yes, but it appears that everyone in the world owns this game, so it's difficult to get rid of. But it's a very good game if you've not tried it, so give it a go. Anyway, if you want to go over to the BRB UK chat room and ask us questions, you might say, I have a question, and let's go from the top and work our way down. Stingo, he says, so Sports Illustrated is now covering video games. The BRB crew needs to be ready for the swimsuit edition. To which, this is a multi-tier question. Here we go.
Right.
Sam Rowan then jumped in and said, already 1/3 of the way there with Mr. November. Would Dan or Coleman go the Borat Mankini or some other Speedo budgie smugglers? If you want to look at, and it keeps on going. Stingo then replies with, suppose swimsuit edition wants each of you to be in their swimsuit edition.
Sports Illustrated
is
SI,
Sports Illustrated wants you. Each of you wants to be in that. You could. I just could have got away with that if you didn't say anything. What would you want included in your photo shoot? I think me and Dan. If Tim's going the Mr. November route with his Speedo budgie smugglers, me and Dan. If you are aware of the Ring of Honor wrestler Dalton Castle, he has a whole gimmick where very muscular, oiled men in kind of Mardi Gras costumes accompany him to the ring, and then eat feed out of his hand. So me and Dan will kind of dress as those guys. I think. It's weird, a very disturbing thing. I know it's weird. Independents are weird, and then they get bought by bigger companies with people that have way too much money, and then they get put on TV, and you go, "What the heck is this?" Very talented wrestler, odd gimmick. Okay. Anywho, me and Dan will dress that way, and if we've got to include things in our edition, I don't know. We'll do it football themed.
I'm gonna
a dolphin. Sure. Tim's going to be riding the back of a dolphin in his Speedo. Dan's going to be dressed as a strange Mardi Gras muscle oil man with a stethoscope, and I will have a football trophy because that's the closest Portsmouth's going to get this year. Yeah, we'll do that.
Maybe the closest Spurs get as well. So hey.
Speaking of VRB early, Kev, he's jumped into our Discord and he says, what do your respective next 2 months of gaming look like? Is it all Starfield? Is anyone attempting to play at least some of every big game they have interest in? Will Dan play anything that doesn't start with a D and end with a number? Will Tim play anything without a box strapped to his face?
Also, no.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, I've been poor for the last couple of months, so I haven't splashed as much as I possibly would have done. You may have noticed a few of the big games that I haven't picked up. I do intend on picking up Armored Core at some point. I may now wait until it goes on sale, possibly. But I'm really torn between that and Baldur's Gate. I know Kev has been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3.
I want to play Baldur's Gate.
And I kind of want to play that as well. So I'm torn. I'm either going to just look for whichever one goes on sale at a decent price that I can afford and pick one of those up at some point soon-ish. And maybe audience members, if there's a particular one you'd like to hear my opinion on, let me know. Or there's a particular one you think I should play just for my own enjoyment, give me a shout. But I am going to be jumping into Starfield. I've already got my hands full with a few VR games that I've obviously spent a little bit of money on. So I'm probably going to be okay for now. I plan to report back on Starfield in the next few weeks. I don't even know if I'm going to be picking up that many review games at the moment, just because I've got my hands full with stuff, and Starfield is going to be taking up some time as well. So, yeah, it's going to be a tricky time, possibly. What about yourself, Coleman?
So my gaming future at the moment for the next couple of months, it will be Mortal Kombat. Obviously, I'll be carrying on with Immortal, and
you need to bring that around as well.
I'm going to try out some Armored Core. As I was discussing with the man called Rick, he said that he was kind of describing the gameplay. I was like, yeah, I know. I used to play Armored Core, like the first Armored Core, but I never got into 2 or 3. So I assume it from what he was describing, it's very similar. And I used to really like that idea of sort of specking out your mech guy. And the way I did it was kind of put everything on there that you want, and then start taking things away because you're way too heavy and can't play the game. But yeah, I really like the idea of Armored Core. I used to play a lot of that as a kid, so I'm looking forward to getting into that. I also want to play Baldur's Gate. I should have bought it early access. I meant to. The price went up after early access when the full 1.0 version came out. Unfortunately, I did not take advantage of that. It's weird because Baldur's Gate has just completely shattered my interest in Diablo 4 because I want to play Baldur's Gate so bad. And I've only got room for one of those this year. Otherwise, I think I'm going to, in October, there's a fair few games coming out in October and DLC updates and all that kind of stuff. There's a Sonic game on its way that I'd like to play. I can't remember when that Mario game's out. I'd want to play that as well.
That's out soon.
Yeah, that's out soon. The big one I'm looking forward to, and I need to kind of sit down and knuckle down and finish Cyberpunk 2077 because I want to play the expansion very badly.
Yeah.
Although from what I've read, I think if you install the DLC before you finish the main game, there are some improvements to be had there. So who knows how I'll get along with this. But I jumped back in the other day, and that game is still one of my... It's amazing. A game that we kind of praised and then mocked and then beat up, and it went away, and it came back and became one of my favorite games of all time. That's quite crazy.
That level of... okay. I was just going to say, I have heard that they said that a lot of the improvements that are coming to the game, the improved police kind of interaction, the vehicles, a lot of the stuff isn't exclusive to the expansion. So that is all going to come to the game, and then you can buy the expanded content on top of that. So I might dive in and try out the game, with all the improvements. And then if I like that, then pick up the expanded edition. I'm just really disappointed that they have never done any VR thing for that, because that would be brilliant in VR, that game, I think.
Mate, look at the state of it when it got launched. You're kind of grasping at straws on that one. You're giving them too much work. And that team's about to start working on Witcher. So, it's only the one expansion for Cyberpunk, unfortunately, but they look to be planning a doozy with it. And I really enjoy it. It's amazing because that game, they did the PS5 release. I checked it out to sort of go, okay. I mean, it was at a reduced rate as well when they released it. I checked it out and went, yeah, this plays a lot better. And then at some point went into it properly, and it instantly became a top favorite of mine. But we went to EGX last year, shortly after I'd gotten into the game. And anytime I spoke to anyone, they were going, hey, what are you playing at the moment, Cyberpunk? They go, really? Still? I go, no, just got into it properly because this game is amazing. They fixed it and it's brilliant. I love Cyberpunk 2077. So I'm really looking forward to the DLC on that one. But yeah, that's a kind of a glimpse into what we're looking forward to in the next couple of months. Let's get a couple more of these out of the way as well. Here's mainly because I want to get to this one.
Spiky Chris. You just want to do Spiky Chris as well.
Mainly because I want to talk to you about Spiky Chris. He says, I have a question. Don't know if you know this about Spiky Chris, Tim, but as well as being spiky and called Chris, he's quite Scottish.
Oh.
We've had conversations about Drew McIntyre in the WWE and the voice that he puts on compared to how he actually talks in real life. But he says, can we have a new segment of Tim Butcher's Scottish words? Because his attempt to pronounce ween, I should have looked at how to pronounce that properly first. I think it's ween, damaged me physically. And we spoke on Discord, and I suggested, yes, well, this could be a thing. If you suggest, we could have him as a judge. So he suggests the words, you pronounce them. He'll tell us on Discord if they're any good or not. So, Tim, if you could, he's been giving us 3 words.
Right.
Let's just get this ready.
I think that's racism, Coleman. I think that's
No.
racist.
No, it's a
But-
tribute.
Before we get into this, I'm going to preface this with, I do have a Scottish girlfriend, so I could have really cheated here. I told her about this, and I told her my pronunciation of the word ween, and she looked at me with
And headbutted
some
you.
level of disgust, basically.
She gave
No,
you a Glasgow
that-
kiss.
No, that would be a friendly greeting in Scotland, but no, she didn't do that. Right, so I could have cheated with all of these. I'm not going to. I'm almost deliberately going to English them up some, okay? So the first word is teacher, which is going to piss my girlfriend off more because she's a teacher. So we'll go with that. Second word, Drake. Drake. In fact, I'm going to go Drake. Even more English. Right? And the third one, I don't even know on this one. I was trying to think of an English equivalent, and I'm not even sure. Like, Glaykit is about as you know. I'd like to know what the actual
Okay.
pronunciation of them is, so that we can actually, compare. But let's get some scores of Spiky Chris for how bad they were.
Well, unfortunately, the segment here suggested is called Tim Butcher's Scottish Words, so I'm not even going to bother attempt them because
No,
that'd be
you can't.
cheating.
Yes,
Because obviously I have
exactly.
a flawless
not
Scottish
Tim.
vocabulary. No, exactly. Thank you, Spiky Chris. That is very entertaining for me, even though we don't know the results until you answer us on Discord. I think you can leave voice notes on Discord. I should check into that because you can
Okay.
give us the actual. I'll ask him. We can get the
Ooh.
pronunciations,
Yeah.
put them on the show. We'll see how they go. Stick them on the
okay.
soundboard. Keep them for the future. Drop them with no reason whatsoever.
Also, what do those words even mean? Like, that'd be interesting enough in themselves. Right, I hope he hasn't tricked me into saying something rude, but I guess I kind of dodged that bullet by not pronouncing them the Scottish way anyway. So who knows? Just
Fair enough.
don't give us really rude words that's going to insult anyone in Scotland, please.
We are going to skip a couple of these and save
Yeah.
them in the back pocket for the future. I will say a very quick one here. Pensive Games says, Baldur's Gate! Who has chosen who as their waifu? None of us are playing, so I'm going to say
what that means.
waifu, like a Japanese anime wife, like your
Wife?
crush, the one that
I've
you are
heard the word before,
lusting
I don't-
after in the game.
Mm.
Okay, well I'm going to say Margaret because I'm not playing Baldur's Gate and I have no idea who the characters are.
Bob.
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 Her name is Bob.
Her name is Bob.
Excellent. I wish I had Black Panther music now. That's got to go on the board, right? I'll put that in the notes. I think that is a pretty hefty.
British.
That is a pretty hefty edition of I Have a Question. So thank you very much for your
Yes.
questions. Be sure to send us more. You don't have to do it when I put out the shout out for questions on Discord.
yeah,
you
you
can
can
do it
just
in any of the ways
volunteer.
mentioned. I will gather them up and put them in. And thank you very much. That should be all the show because we've gone a fair bit over today. When Dan is away, the boys will play and play we shall by talking for way too long about games from Taito and mini wrestling RPGs and random flipping VR updates that I didn't even spot that you hid in there. Well done, Tim. Got one over on the old Coleman.
Snuck in the show notes.
Hopefully, we're all back to normal next week, but we shall find out for episode
Coleman.
557 of BRB UK next week. So for episode 556, I have been Chaos.
I might have been Tim.
I've still been Chaos.
Oh,
Mm.
chaos on either end. I'm
Has Dan
surrounded
been
by
here?
Chaos.
No, Dan. Just Chaos.
Chaos to the left of me, chaos to the right of me, stuck in the middle with chaos.
Excellent. Thank you very much for listening. We will check you out next week. But until next time, dear listener and viewer, if you're on YouTube, I always forget about the YouTube thing. Like, comment, subscribe, as it says at the end of the video.
Yeah.
And goodbye.
your ears are quite welcome.
For the podcasting goodness that you just heard,
Why not roll on over
to BigRedBarrel.com
for more podcasts?
news, reviews, and videos from the biggest, reddest site on the internet, BigRedBarrel.com.
Nordic Digital Showcase. Wow, I think that was a bit more tricky to say than I realised.
Nordic.
That happened. Thank you, Tim. But excellent input.
As always.
Just
well
an
done.
odd stress of syllables.
Was it because the